Welcome back to the podcast and my interview with special guest Gary Jordan, Public Relations Manager at the Johnson Space Center. Gary and I discuss how NASA tells the story of Artemis II and its mission to take its crew of 4 from Earth to around the moon and back, while traveling further than humans have ever gone before. So Gary, we talked a little bit before this interview about some of the goings on, especially with Artemis. And I know a minute ago you're tied up in the middle of stuff, which is what you would do as the boss in your particular role here. Now, how would you describe yourself as far as getting things set up for Artemis? Would you consider yourself a team owner or the quarterback?
Man, I think more like the water boy.
The water boy, okay.
Honestly, I think so I see myself more, like even in the management role, I see myself more as a support function. Am I providing everything that is needed for this team to succeed? Do they understand their schedule? Do they understand where they need to be? Do they have the right contacts? Do they have, like there were so many people that were coming from around the country, really, because to support 24/7 newsroom operations here, we had to pull from Marshall, from headquarters, from Ames, and from Kennedy, all coming here, and various mission directorates and programs that are also surging to help, including our OSTEM, Office of Science, Technology, Engineering, Math Engagement Office, that's also in this building, said, hey, how can I help? Because they just know that it's just constant, So it's just making sure, does everybody have what they need? Do they know what they're doing? Is there something that they could reference to provide them the resources and knowledge to succeed? Mm-hmm. So yeah, and in a sense, it's just that's what I'm doing. And you see people. That's what you were just saying, is people were coming up and saying, "Hey Gary, I need this. Hey Gary, who do I reach out to for this?" I'm just here to help.
Planning for something like this, I know we discussed earlier just in casual conversation about, this is obviously not something that happens overnight, especially something like Artemis II that's been hyped and promoted for so long, for several years now, and it's been scrubbed off and on, and there's kind of a resurgence of get the news back out there again, get it back out there. Talk about the logistics of trying to plan coverage of this, and not just coverage from people like myself coming in, but internal coverage, internal promotions, shooting these shorts that we see out there, the promotional type stuff. That's got to be something that just never stops planning for.
Honestly, it's something that we can trace back years. Because shooting the content for broadcast coverage is one thing, right? It's just your standard video packages that support a live broadcast. There has to be a level of coordination and syncing with the schedules, getting the right people, editing, review process, that whole deal. But what traces back further, even a few years before that, is the coordination on imagery and live streaming capabilities. That, I think, is likely the most important thing about this mission, is if we want people to follow along, they actually have to be able to see what's going on. So we needed to build up our infrastructure. I mean, we're talking hardware upgrades in order to support Artemis operations. We were thinking ahead to think, well, if we're supporting Artemis operations, we know that we are also supporting International Space Station operations. And we can't do one or the other, we have to do both. So we had to make sure that we had the right infrastructure to support anything. What you see, ideally, is the nominal scenario, right? There's a couple of things here and there, but what we prepare for is the off-nominal, right? What would happen if the station had to do an emergency EVA? They had to go outside and fix something. We're not gonna stop coverage we're not going to stop coverage of Artemis, and we're not going to not cover the EVA.
Right.
We're going to cover both. The imagery itself, the downlinking process, and to work on the hardware and the software to actually downlink and process it, work with all the other disciplines that also want data through this tiny little pipeline of data transfer through S-band communications. And be able to prioritize video, give people in-flight events, and downlink high-resolution imagery as part of a prioritization effort. That's really what brings us back several years, coordinating with the engineering and mission operations teams to say, we need to do this for the world.
Setting up all the interviews, you've got I don't know exactly how many members of the media you have from around the world, whether they're here on site or they're calling in on phone bridges and stuff like that. You've got all kinds of requests for interviews, whether it's subject matter experts, administrators, astronauts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. How hard is that to put all that together? I mean, I know that goes out some period of time. As you mentioned earlier, this is something that just didn't happen overnight. And is that one of the hardest aspects of what you're doing in the newsroom here, trying to get that word out? Is that the hardest part, or are there other parts that would you say are even more logistically difficult than scheduling?
Well, you probably know this very well, is you can plan something, but there's a lot that's just not going to go according to plan.
Right.
So the difficult part was trying to anticipate what could happen and what would I need in case something did happen. I referenced the surge support, bringing people from all over. That's what we were thinking about when we went out and actually tried and had the conversations to get people here, is thinking about, well, what if this and what if this and what if this? We have backup scenarios and contingency plans, and what happens if this person gets sick, and all these different things. So the effort and what was difficult was securing the resources to deal with a variety of different scenarios, a variety of different interviews, who's available, who's going to cancel, what people are going to ask for, trying to anticipate that, and just setting the ground foundation of what we think is going to happen, and then react to what actually does happen. Mm-hmm. So that's the challenge, is you really don't know. I mean, you can set some baseline expectations for the media and for all that want to engage in what they are going to see and how to engage, but then inevitably, somebody wants one thing, another person wants another thing. We just have to do what we think is best and what we think is fair, and what is going to ultimately get the most people, the greatest number of people engaged with this mission.
Storytellers. You've got a lot of people in here. Everyone has a role in storytelling and presenting the message of NASA. So people that I see all the time, whether it's yourself or it's different PAOs doing different responsibilities, could be people emceeing press conferences, which I would probably see more than anything else. Mm-hmm. So many different aspects under one banner. How do you make it all work? I mean, are there different people that are responsible for, I'm going to get this team ready to do presentations, this team's going to schedule interviews? Is it like that, or is it that diversified, or is it everyone like kind of jack of all trades, or everyone's got to be able to go at any moment, okay, you got this one, you got this one in 2 weeks? How does it work?
It's a mix of both.
Okay.
So I mentioned that the planning goes back years. We talked about how we ultimately are going to support this mission, and what we were going to focus on, and what our distribution plan was like when it comes to still imagery, when it comes to broadcast, when it comes to blogs, mm-hmm. when it comes to press conferences, media support. There are so many different functions, right? So going back May of 2025 is when we assigned our first round mm-hmm. of assignments to people to own various aspects of that. When we started getting into the weeds after that, we started realizing how cross-disciplinary it is. The blog team relies on the imagery team to give them up-to-date, very recent images, in addition to the editors that are switching the live television program. Everyone's relying on the mission operations team to let them know what the latest is, the people who are doing the live coverage and have the most detailed information of what is going on and what the situation is. So we know that, and we can brief the press and brief the world on the most contextually accurate information. So some of it was planned, and then you talk about like a mishmash, right? It becomes this cross-disciplinary thing, and we made a very intentional effort. I mentioned this a couple of times, that we got people from around the country, mm-hmm. even social media folks, even the imagery folks, even the blog folks, even disciplines that could be remotely located, and we could do everything on a Teams call.
Right.
It was purposefully decided to co-locate everybody because of how integrated we needed to be in order to make this work. Mm-hmm. It just makes things so much easier. You see us all walking around the newsroom talking to each other. I don't know how this could happen without that co-location. I mean, maybe we could probably make it work, but man, it just makes things so much easier.
How is telling the story of Artemis different than maybe previous missions, whether it could be SpaceX launches or Artemis 1? I mean, I know there's the human aspect of it, of course. In addition to that, what would you say are some of the differences coordinating this and getting that narrative out there in a certain way, as opposed to maybe some of the other stuff that you do on a daily basis that still has a human element to it? Everything you do has a human element out here.
Yeah, I think to a certain extent, the greatest difference is the scale. Since I've been at NASA, the greatest scale event that I've worked is the Demo 2 launch with Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley. So much attention on that. People launching from the United States again for the first time since 2011, right? Regaining that capability to do so. It was a significant deal, and a lot of people paid attention to it. So with that came this gargantuan effort of putting everything together. I was fortunate to work that. I was in a different role at the time, but I was very fortunate to be a part of that. This is another beast. It's just, we announced the crew, and it just hasn't slowed down since. The anticipation for this mission, and the knowledge that tens of millions of people are interested in the mission, and it is inspiring people around the world. So we have to cater to all of that. People are watching us live. People are anticipating those photos. They want to do the lunar flyby with the crew. They want to be a part of it. So the scale, I think, is by far. Otherwise, we learned a lot in terms of communication, in terms of storytelling, on how to do it effectively. We have to pull from those lessons because we can think about what works and what doesn't work. We refine it, we add to it. The level of integration is unbelievable. I would say it is a step above what we did for Demo 2. Just working just across disciplines. I think it's scale.
Okay. And I'm sure it's not lost on you that you and your department have this big responsibility. Going back to the narrative, I'm hitting on this narrative quite a bit, but what you're doing now is actually putting this narrative out there that's going to be in history books in the future. When we go back and look at space travel 10 years from now, which a lot's happening really quick, so 10 years, who knows? What are your personal thoughts on that role that you're in right now? Whether you want to call it timing or divine intervention or whatever you may want to attribute it to, there's not many people in your chair with your responsibilities, and you're not doing it by yourself. But like you say, you're kind of, yes, you're getting out there filling in the gaps when you need to, but you're also directing the team. What are your personal thoughts on how that might impact? Me
personally, I think, I'll jump back to being very fortunate enough to do commentary for Ascent, right? Ahead of that, I was well aware of, man, I better get that opening line right, because that's going to be in documentaries, it's going to be in museums, I better get it right. And that pressure, if you think about it, is overwhelming. So my strategy was to just keep my head down and do my job, and do what I could to best represent the tone, the feeling, the focus, the preparation of the team that was in that room with me, and just be a part of that. And here we are, we're talking just 2 days after that moment. I've been keeping my head down because we've done the planning. We know what we're doing that's going to effectively engage people now, what people need and what people deserve in terms of transparency. But with the knowledge that when we planned it with a certain integrity of making sure we were thinking about just that we were doing the best that we could. And 50 years from now, whenever people are looking back on the Artemis 2 mission and still making documentaries about it, just like people do now with Apollo missions and with even shuttle. I mean, people are making those all the time, coming to us on a yearly basis with new ideas and perspectives that we can say confidently that we did our due diligence to maintain our integrity in doing what we should be doing, communicating to the world as transparently as possible.
You talked about doing the commentary the other day when you had the launch, and I remember when you came on, I was like, oh, there's Gary, and I always thought, whenever they pan to you, what's going through his mind? I mean, he's not red-faced, he looks calm, cool, and collective. And I go back to the first time I did radio for about 4 years. And the first time that red on-air light came on, and it was a small station, but you knew that untold numbers of people were listening to you. And I just was trying to remember of what went through my mind when it's go time. And what did I do to prepare for it? Which, looking back at the first time, was nothing like the 100th time I did it. Talk about your process for getting ready for being displayed for all the world to hear and see.
Yeah. Part of it was a year of training. I started with what we call integrated sims, which means we get the whole flight control team in the room and the crew is in a simulator. And then we run some simulations with data that that is very much similar to what we would see on launch day, but it's all pretend. So we can play to different scenarios. And I did that over and over and over and over the course of a year, pretty much. And they threw wild scenarios at us, right? So I had to be prepared for nominal, and for the most of the time in the Sims, they threw some off-nominal cases at us. So I had to dance and weave through commentary. Even though I was speaking to nobody, I was speaking out loud in Mission Control just to get that sense of timing and rhythm and tone and all of that. So I had rehearsed that a number of times, and you probably know, I used to do theater in high school, for example. You do it so many times that even if you were to just get really overwhelmingly nervous and have that level of stage fright, when it finally does come out, it comes out so natural because you've done it so many times, right? Because you've rehearsed it, you had a certain tone when you rehearsed it, and that's the way it comes out. Hopefully, usually, unless you're shaking too much. I'm sure we all have our embarrassing stories of being on stage. So I remember being entirely focused in the moment of booster ignition to the first couple of 30 seconds. It wasn't until about a minute where I really just had a blip of awe of what I was a part of. And the screens was the SLS rocket. I was seeing it, we were feeling it, it was real, right? So it was just a blip. And then I got back to as if I was in a sim with the team.
Have there been any times when you've done this so far, whether it was Artemis or even anything else that you've done here as far as you being live broadcasting is concerned, where there's been some aspect of the story that you're helping tell, or maybe there's something that's being discussed in a press conference or something like that stirred you emotionally to the point to where you kind of had to take a breath and maybe oh, that got me, like maybe emotionally, and you had to kind of take a second or maybe shift your mind to something else to get you back in the game.
You're talking from the perspective of, say, like moderating a news conference or doing some commentary.
Right? You're in the moment with everyone else, and something happens there, and you just it stirs you.
Yeah. It was that exact moment on Assen.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the one for sure. Otherwise I remained focused, but yeah, for that blip, it was a few seconds where because I mentioned I had timed everything, right? So I knew the calls that Capcom Stan Love was going to do, and I knew how the crew was going to respond on Orion to Earth, how long it would take, when it would be, all assuming a nominal ascent, and how I would dance and weave just in case anything were to be off nominal, which we'd simmed a bunch of different times. And so yeah, it was that moment where you just see the rocket ascending. You're like, we are going to the moon. This is insane. We are a part of history right now. This is happening. This is real. We didn't scrub,
Right.
Like we are here. We're here in this moment. And it just lasted a few seconds, right? And it's just, I think a lot of, I bet you if you were to talk to flight controllers or maybe even the astronauts, they would have a very similar experience of, you have a job to do, right? You can't sit in that awe for too long because we have that responsibility, that duty. So yeah, there was certainly that moment for sure, And of course I've been in press conferences where I've been next to astronauts, and same deal. Had a moment where like, what am I doing? Why am I here? I think I moderated my first crew news conference in 2016, so I was 25 years old. So next to astronauts, right? To me, that was a really big deal. To a lot of people in the office who had been here for 20 plus years already, I was just like, yeah, you got this. But my heart was pounding. And in the first minute, I promise you, 60 seconds, I felt like I blacked out. Don't remember it. I remember just my heart sinking, and it was like what I told you, that I had rehearsed that opening line so many times that it just came out, but my heart was down here, and in my eyes, I feel like we're seeing black. I was just like, it was just amazing, you know, just to be a part of this. Yeah.
Coming out here for the first time, everything was so new to me, and I want to compare this to your experiences coming out and you know, starting to work in this department with people.
Sure.
You always hear about astronauts as them, those people over there, those people on TV or on a picture, or you might see them at some event, and they're still kind of, it's them over there. You don't really know them. That they're celebrities in their own right. You know, a lot of people view them as celebrities. How has this job out here helped you connect with people who otherwise seem as so distant from everyone else? I mean, they're heroic in that sense, but coming back down and kind of equate that to just two people across the table getting to know each other.
Yeah.
You know.
You know this too, Richard, is just, you know, like in terms of a podcast, right? So how I approach a podcast is just sitting down and imagining we're out to lunch, and I'm just very fortunate to have a conversation, but it's otherwise just that. It's a conversation between two human beings, and it breaks down those barriers. You do that time and time again, and it's exactly what you're saying. You realize, you know, like that person is unbelievably smart, somebody to look up to for sure, no matter what their discipline is, whether scientist, engineer, if they were in the military, or you know, whatever. They are just remarkable human beings, but for the most part, they are down to earth. They are very, you know, they're very grounded, which is kind of funny how, you know, astronauts being grounded. Yeah, for sure. But you know, they have a sense of humility to them, and it definitely portrays in the way that they introduce themselves, you know, and to just speak to them like that time and time again, speak to them like they are a person, you know, and not necessarily this idol or, you know, figure, but just, you know, just a casual person, because these ultimately are our neighbors. We are very fortunate to be in Houston, Texas, where astronauts are our neighbors, right? Where we sometimes find them at some sort of social event, and next thing you know, we're sitting having a conversation and sharing a drink together, right? So it when they're not wearing the uniform, it kind of breaks those down, and you do that time and time again, and you just realize, man, we're all just figuring it out.
I found that there's almost like a sense of investment in them. When I've interviewed some, where in the past I might write a story, and I'm waiting for the next story. It's kind of like, okay, you know, I'll follow up and I'll see what happens when they get back down here and everything like that. But as I started interviewing them and getting to know them through interviews, it's like, okay, that's not just the person that you see in the capsule on the evening news. I shook their hand, I talked to them, we talked about their family a little bit, we talked about the things they like to do. That personal investment, that, so to speak, that kind of comes from getting to know people. Did you have that same level of, I guess, like personal investment in them, and they're just more so than just, oh, it's part of my job to make sure they get interviews?
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, 100%. You know, when I first, like you said, when I first started the job, you know, I had a job, they had a job. You know, it was write the talking points, give you the talking points, right? It was almost like this. It was just a duty, but I didn't really take the time to invest. And I did that even with some of the programs that I supported. It's just like, I need the information, please give me the information, right? And that's sort of the way I treated it. We were just doing our jobs and kind of going about our day. And you stay at NASA long enough, when you first come at NASA, you're like, welcome to the NASA family. And you're like, sure, right? You know, like what company, what organization wouldn't say that, right? But over time, you definitely realize, I talked about friends, neighbors, socials. I mean, these are some incredibly smart and capable people, but they are also very friendly, very humble, and very welcoming. There's the embrace that they give you. If you just get the time to work as a team, not only in a professional sense, but just in the courteous, personal manner that I think all of us really deserve, to give somebody, the benefit of the doubt, or to give somebody the time they need because they're going through something personal, and to ask them about how they're doing. It goes all different ways, right? And so you kind of get a sense of that. Here I am 10 plus years later, and man, you walk down the hall, you're shaking people's hands. How you doing? I haven't seen you in a while. Man, it's like a family here, and it's representative of just the people that you get here. They're smart, they're capable. What we do is absolutely incredible. Right now we're talking as humans are flying to the moon. That's from the support of everybody around here. But yeah, it's just, it took so much effort to get here. We go through some hard times together. We're long nights, long hours, overnights, You do that enough and those barriers break down pretty quick.
So, wrapping this up a little bit, we've still got quite a bit of time left on this mission. What are you looking forward to the most next, and where do you think, logistically speaking, from a work perspective, are going to be some of those hardest days to get this coverage and everything just right?
Well, we certainly bulked a lot of our effort, a lot of our surge, a lot of our resources towards key moments of the mission. Now, of course, we have 24/7 coverage. I mentioned that, right? Making sure that we have that sustained support. That was very, very important. But also to focus it on those key moments. So coming up is Lunar Flyby, Monday, April 6th. This is a big deal. That's the closest approach to the moon. The crew is going to be talking on Orion to Earth 1, saying their observations of the moon in real time. They're going to be taking photos. Everybody's going to really want those photos as quickly as possible. We are ready to support that effort, right? We're working with the science teams, we're working with the flight control teams. Everybody knows that these photos are really, really, really important to get down. And they're very supportive of that effort, and so we're working with them. That's certainly going to be difficult. I'm very much looking forward to that because the point here is to take people along the ride. We're going to get to see it live. And we have a job to do, but, I'm going to take that blip of just kind of taking a step back and just sitting in the moment for just a minute, a few seconds really, to just say, wow, this is an incredible moment, right? And then splashdown. I think splashdown is going to be just the conclusion of the mission. We did it. They're safe. They're on board. They're coming home, right? And just to know that, we did the best that we could, and now we're at the back end of it. And just to say after that moment, that was awesome, what's next, right? Start gearing up for Artemis 3.
So as soon as this is over, it's plans already for Artemis 3, or have you actually done some preliminary work already?
We're already talking.
I figured.
Yeah, yeah, we're already talking.
I can't wait.
We got a lot to do. The directive has been clear, right? Our administrator said, we're aiming to launch Artemis 3 in 2027, and so we have to plan. That's quick. That's a really quick turnaround. So what do we have to do to be ready for that mission? Oh man, we better start having conversations with the HLS providers, right? We better start putting that all together, and who knows how long the mission duration is going to be. We were able to sustain 10 days of 24/7 ops, so what does it look like if we have to extend that? Thinking about Artemis 4 and 5. Imagery-wise, what do we need? So we're already thinking about it, right? So because it's going to take, we'll celebrate for sure. We will recognize just what we have done for Artemis 2, but we know that we have to immediately turn around and start thinking about Artemis 3, and there's a long road ahead, to do that right as well.
If you enjoyed this video, consider supporting our effort to share the news in print and on our extensive website, and now on our new YouTube channel. Contact publisher David Day at area code 409-943-4265 to support the Post newspaper today.